The first thing Lyra noticed when she stepped into the human apartment was the warmth. It wasn't just from the air vents or the lights. It was something deeper, something living. The place smelled faintly of coffee, metal, and soap. A strange combination, but not unpleasant. She stood by the door, blinking her bright silver eyes as she scanned the small but cozy space. It was nothing like the cold, perfect chambers of her own world, Krila 7, where everything was sterile, quiet, and lifeless. The walls there were glass, and emotions were forbidden. No one laughed. No one touched. No one cared. Lyra was trained for this assignment. She had studied human habits through endless data streams, videos, behavioral files, emotional simulations. Her mission was to serve as a cultural maid, learning how humans lived so the Galactic Union could decide if humans were safe to integrate into the larger galaxy. She had practiced smiling in front of a mirror, practiced soft tones of speech, and even practiced the strange act of thanking and apologizing. Two things the Krylans rarely did. She was ready. At least she thought she was. Then she met Ethan Cole. He was taller than she expected, with kind eyes and a voice that carried warmth like a soft fire. He opened the door with a smile that reached his eyes. "You must be Lyra," he said. "Come in. I hope the journey wasn't too rough." His words were gentle, but they felt strange to her. No one ever asked how she felt before. Krylans didn't talk like that. Feelings were weakness. Yet the way he said it, it made her chest feel tight. She stepped inside, her boots clicking softly against the wooden floor. "I am ready to perform my duties," she said in her clear, calm voice. Ethan laughed lightly. "You don't have to sound so serious. It's just a home, not a starship, just a home." The phrase echoed in her mind. For her, home was just a place to sleep between training sessions. But this little human space was filled with something else. The air was alive with small traces of emotion. Paintings on the wall, pictures of smiling faces, books stacked beside the couch, a small plant growing by the window. Everything seemed to have meaning. As she began her tasks, cleaning, organizing, observing, she found herself constantly distracted by the smallest things. A photo of Ethan standing with two older humans. They were holding each other close, smiling at the camera. Family, she thought. The concept fascinated her. Ethan noticed her staring and said softly, "That's my mom and dad. They're on Mars Colony now. I don't get to see them much." His voice carried a tiny sadness. Lyra didn't understand why humans showed their emotions so openly. But there was something pure about it, something that made her curious. Later that evening, Ethan offered her a cup of something steaming. "Hot chocolate," he said. "You should try it. Sweet stuff. Humans love it." She hesitated, her silver fingers brushing the warm cup. The heat seeped through her skin, strange but comforting. When she took a sip, her eyes widened slightly. It was rich and smooth, unlike anything from her world. Ethan chuckled at her reaction. "See? Told you you'd like it." She looked at him then, studying his face, his easy smile, the relaxed way he sat beside her. He didn't look at her like a servant. He looked at her like a person. That night, when she went to her small sleeping quarters, she couldn't stop thinking about it. The warmth of the drink, the human smile, the way he said thank you every time she did something. No one had ever thanked her before. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking at her reflection in the mirror. Her silvery eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. For the first time, she didn't recognize herself. "I was not prepared," she whispered quietly. "Not for this." Outside, the human city lights shimmered through the window like a living sea of stars. Somewhere within that light, she felt something awakening, something her species had forgotten long ago. And deep inside her heart, an emotion she couldn't name began to take root. Days turned into weeks, and Lyra slowly learned what it meant to live among humans. It wasn't the cleaning, cooking, or organizing that challenged her. It was the little things, the emotions, the strange warmth in every word, the way humans laughed even when they were tired. Ethan Cole was unlike anyone she had ever known. He didn't command her or treat her as property. Instead, he spoke to her with patience. Every time she made a small mistake, like spilling water or placing dishes the wrong way, he would simply smile and say, "It's okay, Lyra, you'll get it next time." That phrase confused her more than anything else. It's okay. On her world, failure meant shame. Perfection was law. But here, mistakes were forgiven, sometimes even laughed at. Humans, she thought, were both foolish and wonderful. One morning, Lyra was standing near the window looking out at the rising sun. The golden light spread across the sky like liquid fire, touching every building with warmth. Ethan joined her, carrying 2 steaming cups of that strange drink he loved so much. Coffee? He handed her one. Try this instead of chocolate, he said, smiling. Bitter, but it wakes you up. She took it carefully and sipped. Her expression shifted instantly. It is unpleasant, Ethan laughed. Yeah, most of us think that at first. But you get used to it. She tilted her head, watching him drink his cup with ease. Humans seem to enjoy many things that hurt them, she said softly. Fire, bitterness, sadness. You take pain and you call it life. Ethan looked at her with surprise, then smiled gently. Maybe that's true. But that's what makes us human, Lyra. We feel everything, good or bad, and we keep going. His words stayed with her for hours after he left for work. She sat quietly in the kitchen, touching the still warm cup and thinking about what he said. Later that evening, when Ethan came back home, tired and covered in dust from his engineering job, she greeted him with a small smile. You are late, she said softly. He rubbed his neck and chuckled. Yeah, had to fix a generator at the South Docks. Long day. She looked at him for a long moment, her silver eyes studying his face. Humans aged fast, she realized. Their bodies wore the marks of every effort, every emotion, yet he still smiled. Without thinking, she reached out and gently brushed a streak of dirt from his cheek. Ethan froze for a moment, surprised by her touch. Oh, she said quickly, pulling back. I'm sorry, it was... Reflex, he smiled softly. It's all right, Lyra, thanks. Her fingers still tingled from the brief contact. She had touched other beings before, but this was different. Human skin was warm, alive in a way that stirred something deep inside her chest. That night, when Ethan cooked dinner for both of them, a simple meal of rice and vegetables, he insisted she sit and eat with him. You're not just here to clean, he said. You're my guest too. She hesitated but obeyed. The food was soft, flavored, and strange. The idea of sharing a meal, something so personal, made her feel shy. But when Ethan laughed and told stories about his childhood, about his first day on a spaceship, about burning his first pancake, she found herself laughing too. It was the first time in her life that she laughed with someone. After dinner, Ethan leaned back and sighed. Feels nice having someone to talk to, he said quietly. Been alone too long, I guess. Lyra looked at him then, something heavy forming in her chest. Loneliness. She knew that word from human files, but now she felt it too. She understood him more than he could imagine. On her world, she was surrounded by others, but had always felt empty. But here, with this one human, she felt seen. Before going to her room, she whispered softly, Humans are very strange. Ethan grinned. You'll get used to us. But as Lyra lay in her bed that night, staring at the faint glow of the city lights through her window, she realized something deep and frightening. She didn't want to get used to humans. She wanted to understand them. She wanted to feel what they felt. And most of all, she wanted to understand him. The rain fell hard that evening, drumming against the windows like 1,000 tiny hands. Lightning flashed across the sky, bathing the apartment in silver light. Inside, Lyra moved quietly through the rooms, humming softly, a habit she had picked up from Ethan. Humans liked sound. Silence made them uneasy. She was wiping the kitchen counter when the communicator on her wrist beeped. It was a message from the Krylon Observation Center. Report required. Emotional patterns observed. Continue study. Avoid attachment. Her eyes lingered on those words. Avoid attachment. She didn't understand how one could study humans without feeling anything. Every day with Ethan showed her that emotion was not a weakness. It was a kind of strength. But her orders were clear. She sighed, placing the device aside. Just then she noticed a spill of water near the refrigerator. As she stepped closer to clean it, her foot slipped on the wet floor. There was a sharp sound, then pain. The next moment, everything went dark. When she woke up, her head throbbed. She felt something warm pressed against her forehead. Opening her eyes slowly, she saw Ethan kneeling beside her, his face pale and worried. Lyra. Hey, stay still, don't move, he said quickly. His voice trembled slightly. She blinked, confused. What happened? You fell, he said, his hands shaking as he wiped the blood from her head with a cloth. You hit your head. You scared the hell out of me. His face was so close to hers she could feel his breath. The look in his eyes, it wasn't just concern. It was fear. For her, I am fine, she whispered weakly. I can. Don't you dare move, he interrupted, pressing the cloth gently against her wound. You're not fine. Just stay there, okay? The firmness in his voice silenced her. She watched him move quickly, fetching bandages, cleaning the wound carefully. His hands trembled, but his touch was gentle. The warmth from his skin spread through her like soft electricity. No one has ever worried for me like this, she said quietly. Ethan looked at her for a moment, then smiled sadly. Well, someone should. That simple sentence hit deeper than any word she had known. Someone should. When he was done patching her up, he wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and helped her sit on the couch. The warmth of the fabric and his presence filled her chest with something heavy yet comforting. He sat beside her, his eyes still filled with concern. You scared me, he said again, softly this time. I did not mean to, she replied, lowering her gaze. I know, he said, smiling faintly. But still, you can't just fall and give me a heart attack like that. She tilted her head slightly. Heart attack? He chuckled. Just a saying. It means, I care. That word. Care. It lingered in her mind like a melody she couldn't forget. After a long pause, Lyra spoke again. Ethan, why do you care for me? I am only your assigned helper. He looked at her for a moment, then sighed. Because you're not just that. You matter to me. Her silver eyes widened. No one had ever said that to her. You matter. Those two words were powerful enough to shake her entire world. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside the small apartment, everything felt still. She wanted to say something back, but her voice trembled too much to form words. Ethan noticed. He smiled softly, patting her shoulder. Rest, Lyra, we'll talk later, okay? She nodded slowly, leaning back on the couch. As he turned to leave, she whispered something under her breath. Words she didn't fully understand yet. Thank you, Ethan. He stopped for a second, looking back at her with gentle eyes. Anytime. When he left, she touched the blanket around her, feeling the warmth of his care still lingering in every fiber. For the first time, she realized that humans didn't just live, they connected. They shared pain, warmth, and fear, and somewhere deep inside, something changed in Lyra. She was no longer just an observer. She was part of his world now, part of something beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Days passed after the accident, but Lyra was not the same. The wound on her head had healed, yet her heart carried a strange heaviness she couldn't explain. Every time she saw Ethan, her chest tightened and her thoughts became foggy. She had been taught that emotions were dangerous, that attachment clouded logic. But now logic felt empty. Ethan treated her no differently than before. He still made her laugh with his clumsy stories, still brewed that bitter drink every morning, still said thank you even for the smallest things. But to Lyra, everything he did felt different. His words had warmth. His presence filled the air like sunlight. One evening, the sky outside was painted in soft orange. Ethan had cooked dinner again, and the smell of food filled the small apartment. They sat across from each other at the table, two beings from different worlds, yet somehow sharing one peaceful space. As they ate in silence, Ethan looked up and smiled. You seem quiet today. Everything okay? Lyra hesitated. Her silver eyes met his brown ones, and for a moment words failed her. Ethan, she said slowly, may I ask something? Personal? He raised an eyebrow, curious. Of course. What's on your mind? She placed her fork down carefully, her voice soft. When you helped me that night, when you held me, I felt something strange. My heart hurt, but also felt warm. What was that? Ethan blinked, surprised. You mean, when you got hurt? She nodded. Yes, when you looked at me, I saw something in your eyes. Fear, sadness, but also something else. I do not know what it means. Ethan leaned back slightly, studying her face. It means I was worried. I care about you, Lyra. She tilted her head, repeating his words slowly. Care about me, she paused. You said that before. But what does it truly mean? He took a deep breath, thinking. It means, when someone matters to you, you want them to be safe. You want them to smile. You want them around. It's not logical, it's emotional. It's affection. Affection, she whispered. The word felt fragile in her mouth. He smiled softly. And sometimes, if it grows stronger, it becomes something else. Something called love, Lyra froze. She had heard that word before, read it in human files, but it was always described as an uncontrollable madness. Yet when Ethan said it, the word didn't sound dangerous. It sounded beautiful. Love, she repeated. Humans. You risk so much for it. Yeah, Ethan said with a quiet laugh. We do. But it's worth it. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of something unspoken. Lyra's heart beat faster. She didn't know what to do with the warmth flooding her chest. It scared her, yet she didn't want it to stop. Finally, she whispered, Ethan, I think I am feeling it. His eyes widened slightly. Feeling what? She looked down at her hands. This affection. When you smile, I feel peace. When you are sad, I feel pain. I want to protect you, though you are not my kind. I do not understand it, but I feel it. Ethan's expression softened and he reached across the table, placing his hand gently over hers. Then don't try to understand it, he said softly. Just to feel it, her breath caught. His hand was warm, strong, alive. She looked up and their eyes met again. One human, one alien, and for that moment the galaxy outside didn't matter. Then she quickly pulled her hand back, flustered. I should not, she said. My people forbid such emotions. We are taught that feelings lead to chaos. Ethan gave her a sad smile. Then maybe your people never learned what makes life worth living. His words hit her like a pulse through her heart. For a moment she couldn't breathe. That night, when Ethan had gone to sleep, Lyra stood by the window once again. The city lights reflected in her silver eyes like tiny stars. She touched her chest where her heart was still beating fast. She whispered to the night, Is this love? Or something more dangerous? But deep down she already knew the answer. It was both. The days after Lyra's confession felt different, warmer, brighter, yet heavier all at once. Every morning, when Ethan greeted her with his usual grin, her heart would race. Every time he said her name, it sounded softer than before, like a melody meant only for her. But underneath that new warmth, something dark began to stir. Her communicator blinked every night, flashing the same message from the Krylon command. Mission nearing completion. Report soon. Prepare for extraction. Those words filled her chest with dread. Extraction meant the end. It meant she would be taken away from Earth, away from him. She tried to ignore it at first, focusing on her daily work, pretending everything was normal. But the more time she spent beside Ethan, the more impossible it became to hide her emotions. One evening, while Ethan worked on his mechanical tools, Lyra sat silently by the table, watching him. His hands moved with focus, fixing a broken drone. The soft light illuminated his face, and for a moment she thought, this was what peace looked like. Ethan noticed her staring. You okay? He asked, smiling. Yes, she said quickly. Then after a pause, she added softly, No. He put down his tools, concern filling his eyes. What's wrong? She hesitated, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan, if I said I have to leave soon, what would you feel? He blinked. Leave? What do you mean? My mission. The reason I came here. It will end soon, she said, her words heavy. They will call me back. Ethan's expression changed. The easy warmth vanished from his face, replaced by shock. You're saying you'll just go? I must, she said quietly. It is my duty. Ethan stood up, his voice rough. So that's it? You just disappear? Like none of this meant anything? His anger startled her. Humans were loud when they were hurt, she realized. But it wasn't the noise that broke her. It was the pain in his eyes. I did not mean to hurt you, she whispered. But I have no choice. I belong to the Krylon command. I was made to obey. Ethan stepped closer, frustration and sadness mixing in his voice. Lyra, you're not a machine. You're a person. You've changed. You feel. She looked away, tears gathering in her silver eyes. My kind does not cry, she said softly, almost to herself. And yet, I am. The sight of her tears silenced him. He reached out, gently lifting her chin so their eyes met. Then maybe your kind was wrong about what it means to live. For a moment, no one spoke. The room was filled only with the sound of the rain tapping against the windows. Then with a trembling voice, Lyra said, If I stay, they will punish me. If I go, I will lose everything that makes me feel alive. Ethan's hand dropped slowly. So what will you do? She didn't answer. She couldn't. That night, Lyra sat alone in her small room, staring at her communicator. The message blinked again. Extraction in 48 hours. Report your location. She held the device tightly, her heart aching. She could send the signal, end it all, return to her people, and forget this strange human warmth forever. That would be the logical thing to do, but logic no longer guided her. In the living room, she could hear Ethan moving around, his footsteps slow and heavy. She wanted to go to him to tell him she couldn't leave, but fear held her back, fear of her own heart. Finally, she stood by the window, watching the stars glitter above Earth's night sky. Somewhere out there, her people waited for her report, but for the first time, she didn't want to belong to them. She whispered to the stars, "Why do humans make everything so complicated?" Then with a trembling voice, she added, "Why can't I just stop loving him?" The communicator blinked again, cold and bright. She turned it off. Outside, thunder rumbled. Inside, Lyra's heart made its own quiet decision, one she couldn't yet speak aloud, but which she already knew deep inside. She would not obey. The night before Lyra's extraction felt heavier than any storm. Dark clouds covered the sky, and rain poured endlessly over the city. The sound of thunder rolled like distant anger, shaking the windows of Ethan's small apartment. Inside, Lyra stood near the door with her small travel case. Her communicator blinked silently, counting down the hours until the transport ship arrived. Each blink felt like a heartbeat she didn't want to hear. She had packed everything neatly, her data files, her reports, her tools, but her heart refused to stay calm. Every part of her body screamed that she was doing something wrong. Yet logic whispered that it was her duty. Then she heard footsteps. Ethan walked into the room, his face pale and his eyes red from sleeplessness. He looked at the packed bag by the door and his shoulders sank. "So, you're really going?" he said quietly. Lyra turned to face him. Her voice was soft, trembling. "I must, my people are waiting. They will come for me soon." He didn't answer. He walked closer, his expression a mix of sadness and frustration. "I thought maybe you'd change your mind," he said. "After everything we've shared." Lyra lowered her gaze. "If I stay, I will be punished. They do not forgive emotion. They will erase my memories. I will lose everything that makes me, me." Ethan's eyes darkened. "Then don't let them. Stay here. You have a choice." She shook her head slowly. "You do not understand. Krelans do not disobey. It is written in our blood." Ethan stepped closer, his voice breaking. "You're not just a Krylan anymore, Lyra. You've changed. You've laughed, cried, cared. You've lived here. You're more human than most humans I know." His words hit her heart like a blade. Tears welled in her silver eyes. "If I stay," she whispered, "they will come for me. And if they do, they might hurt you." Ethan froze. "Then let them come," he said. "I don't care." She looked up, shocked. "You would risk your life?" He smiled sadly. "For you?" Yeah, that simple answer shattered something inside her. No one had ever said such words to her before, not on Kryla, not anywhere. The thought of someone willing to risk everything for her made her knees weak. When she didn't reply, Ethan stepped forward and gently took her hand. "Lyra," he said softly, "you don't have to go. You don't have to obey them anymore." Her breath caught as his hand wrapped around hers. It was warm, alive, and for a moment she imagined what it would be like to stay, to live every day in this little home, to laugh, to cook, to watch sunsets. But then a loud beep came from her communicator. The extraction signal had activated. The ship was entering Earth's atmosphere. Her heart raced. "They are here," she said in a shaking voice. Ethan's grip tightened. "Then we'll hide." "You cannot fight them," she said, almost crying. "They will destroy this place." He looked straight into her eyes. "Then let them destroy everything, but not you." A tear rolled down her cheek. "Ethan, I am afraid." "I know," he whispered. "So am I." Thunder roared above them, and outside, a faint blue light began to shine through the clouds. The Krylan ship, descending silently through the storm. Lyra turned to the window, her body trembling. "If I do not report, they will think I have betrayed them." "Maybe betrayal is what they need," Ethan said softly. "Maybe one of them has to show what love looks like." Her heart pounded painfully. She turned back to him and for the first time stepped closer. Her hands cupped his face gently. "You gave me something I did not know existed," she whispered. "Warmth, choice, freedom." Ethan leaned his forehead against hers. "Then choose, Lyra. Not for them, for you." Outside, the light from the ship grew brighter, but inside that tiny apartment, everything felt still. The world seemed to fade until only the two of them remained. One human, one alien, caught between duty and love. Lyra closed her eyes, tears mixing with the rain. "Then I choose," she whispered softly, voice trembling, but her final words were lost beneath the roar of thunder. The storm raged louder outside, wind howling through the cracks of the small apartment. Blue light from the descending Krylon ship painted the walls in ghostly colors. Every second felt like the world was holding its breath. Lyra stood frozen, her heart torn in two directions, between the cold command of her people and the warm pull of Ethan's love. Her communicator beeped again, an urgent signal now. The ship was landing. They were calling her home. Ethan held her hand tightly, refusing to let go. "You don't have to go," he said again, voice shaking but sure. She looked up at him, tears filling her silver eyes. "If I stay, they will come for me. They will not understand. Then we'll make them understand," he said. "Together." She shook her head. "Humans are strong. But Krylons, they are powerful beyond measure. You cannot fight them, Ethan." He smiled weakly. "Maybe not, but I can stand beside you. That's all that matters to me." Her lips parted slightly, her heart beating faster. The storm outside began to quiet for just a moment, like even nature was waiting for her answer. And then she whispered, almost to herself, "I do not want to lose you." Ethan smiled sadly. "Then don't." Lyra took a deep breath and turned off her communicator. The blinking light died, leaving only the soft flicker of the lamps inside the room. She knew what that meant. She was now marked as missing. A fugitive. She looked at him, fear and love mixing in her gaze. There is no going back now. Ethan brushed a tear from her cheek. "Then we go forward." For a moment, neither spoke. They simply stood there, feeling the world shift around them. Then suddenly the ceiling shook. A deep rumble echoed from above. The Krylon ship was hovering directly over the city. A sharp beam of blue light cut through the clouds and swept across the buildings. Lyra gasped. "They are scanning for me!" Ethan grabbed her hand. "Basement, now!" They rushed down the narrow stairs, the beam following close behind. The entire building trembled, glass shattering and dust falling from the ceiling. In the basement, surrounded by old furniture and boxes, Ethan pulled her close, covering her with his arms. The blue light flashed through the cracks of the door. A mechanical voice echoed outside, speaking in the alien language of Kryla, demanding her surrender. Lyra's body trembled. "If I do not go, they will destroy this place." Ethan shook his head. "You don't belong to them anymore." She looked up at him, seeing the fear in his eyes, and the courage too. He was human, fragile, small compared to the mighty Krylon fleet, and yet his heart was bigger than the universe itself. Something broke inside her, not in pain but in awakening. She stepped away from him, her eyes glowing faintly. "Then let them come," she said, her voice calm. "But they will not find the same Lyra they once knew." Ethan watched as she raised her hand, activating a hidden control in her wristband. A pulse of energy spread through the room, blocking the scan signal. The blue light outside flickered and vanished. The ship roared, confused, unable to detect her anymore. It circled the sky for several minutes, then slowly began to rise back into the clouds, fading into the storm. Silence returned. Only the sound of rain remained. Lyra stood there, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. She turned to Ethan and smiled weakly. "They will call me a traitor now." Ethan stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek. "No," he whispered. "They'll call you something else one day." She blinked. "What?" he smiled. "Human." Her lips trembled, and then she laughed softly through her tears. For the first time, the word felt right. It felt hers. Ethan pulled her into his arms, and she rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. That steady, warm rhythm that had changed her entire world. Outside, the rain washed away the last traces of blue light. The sky cleared, revealing faint stars above. Lyra whispered, Do you think they'll come back? Ethan nodded slightly. Maybe. But next time they won't find you afraid. She smiled, closing her eyes. No, and they will find me alive. And as the night deepened, two beings, one human, one alien, stood together beneath the same roof, united not by species or duty, but by something far greater, something the galaxy had forgotten, something the heart of a human had reminded her of. Love.